Welcome to Create Tomorrow, the WGSN podcast, where we discuss the changing world and how the design industries will need to adapt. Today, our topic is going to be the future of the beauty industry in a post-COVID-19 world. Now, why are we talking about beauty at a time like this, you might be wondering? Well, we're here to explore the new role that beauty will play in a post-coronavirus world. This is an industry that's likely to have increasing resonance as it evolves to meet a changing consumer and support their wellness needs in a very anxious and uncertain time. I'm your host, Peter Marion, and I'm a senior editor on WGSN Insight, where I look at shifting consumer and business trends. Today, I'm working from Hackney in London, and we're in the 5th week of London's lockdown. I'm going to be joined by a few of my favourite colleagues on WGSN, whom I've been missing so much during this period. We have Jenny Middleton, who is the director of WGSN Beauty, where the team looks at how the universe of beauty is changing. Now, Jenny, where are you today?
Hi, Peter. It's great to be here and talking with you, albeit virtually. I've missed you too. I'm speaking to you from Cambridge. So I'm in the UK, but in Cambridge, a very sunny Cambridge.
And also from the beauty team, we have Claire Varga, who's the head of beauty. How are you and where are you today?
Hi, Peter. I'm doing very well, thank you. I am joining you from sunny Berkshire, and I am very happy to be sitting here on my sofa chatting to you all.
I'm so happy to have you here. And lastly, but absolutely not least, we are also joined by Andrea Bell, who is my colleague, my direct colleague, and director of WGSN Insight. Where are you at today?
Hi guys, I'm actually in Los Angeles where it is not sunny, it is raining. So I think London has gotten all the sunshine, but this will be a ray of light in my day being able to chat with everyone.
And one of the rare times that the weather is better here than it is there. So that's exciting. So let's dive straight in here. In this new world, does beauty even matter? Ethically, is it right or relevant to be buying beauty at this time? Jenny, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, so I think that's a really relevant question. And I think everyone, when we started seeing the outbreak of this virus, was asking about the relevance of lots of sectors, and beauty was one of them. And it seems, you know, when we're living in a world that is just so difficult and so challenging, is beauty really the right thing to be even thinking about? And I think that what we've seen as this has unfolded is that beauty is really important. And it's because there are enough kind of categories, subcategories within beauty that really help the sector support people through a time like this and also survive it themselves as businesses. So there are those categories that we've seen really come to the fore, the protect categories, soaps, sanitizers, and we're seeing brands that are pivoting to produce those. And those are super important and are obviously selling incredibly well. And then there's the essentials that we all need to have just to make us feel better, you know, shampoo, shower gel, SPF if we're going out in our gardens or on our daily walks. And then there are the feel goods, the things that make us feel good and feel better. And they're the products that are helping us sleep better. They're the products that are helping us look better on the Zoom calls that we're all doing. And they're the products that are just making us kind of de-stress and unwind. And that's what's keeping the category of beauty, I think, really afloat. And I think it's relevant to talk about it. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, Winston Churchill, the one non-essential that he didn't ration during World War II here in the UK was lipstick, because he knew the value of the wearer putting on lipstick and feeling better. And he also knew the value of people looking at it and the positivity and the morale boost that would cause. And I think what we're seeing really is people thinking, whatever it takes to make me feel good and able to get through this, you know, that's okay. It's okay to want to put on a full face of makeup or to do, you know, a quite, you know, complicated skincare routine if it makes you feel better and helps you get through this. So for me, I think we're seeing beauty emerge as a really important category to help people feel better throughout this.
That's fantastic, Jenny. And I had no idea about that Winston Churchill quote at all. It's such a great one. But in terms of things that are going to change, what do we think that the beauty consumer is going to want as we come through and come to the other side of this crisis?
So I think in terms of what consumers are going to want in terms of beauty products, I mean, it's not going to change that much. They're always still going to want beauty products. And I think it's their priorities that are actually going to change. This, beauty ongoing is going to be about less achieving an aesthetic. It's not going to be about looks. It's going to be more about beauty used to maintain and support health. So I think consumers are going to be looking for things that help them achieve that. So we've already seen, increased demand for antibacterial products, but I think we're also going to start to see things around beauty supplements. Anything that does immunity boosting is going to be really important to consumers. So as I say, it's definitely, not about looks anymore. It's about feeling good and about feeling healthy. And I think other things are going to become more important too. Truth. I mean, we've talked about traceability for such a long time, but after such a period of, instability and uncertainty, we're definitely going to see shoppers and people looking for science-led brands, science-led products that they can trust. They're going to want some consistency. They're going to, there's still a lot of fear and uncertainty about things. There's not going to be as much money around. So they're going to want to know that what they're buying works. So I think truth is going to be a huge factor in consumer decisions ongoing. And then product-wise, I can't help thinking that the whole move towards plant-based products will be hugely accelerated. I think because of the nature of COVID-19 and concerns about zoonotic-like diseases, we're definitely going to see people sort of fearing anything that's animal-based, and I think the trend that for plant-based products is just going to be hugely accelerated. And so, they're going to still want the products, it's just their priorities that are going to change.
And one of the things that you mentioned in there, Claire, was really around people not having a lot of money to spend on product. And, we've seen something we've called the lipstick effect when we go through recessions in the past, where people are able to buy small luxuries, things like lipsticks and things like that, because they can't afford larger ones. And I was wondering, Andrea, is that going to be a factor in after this outbreak as we move into what's looking likely to be a fairly significant recessionary period?
And it's a really interesting point, Peta. I mean, when we discuss what happened in 2008 and 2009, there was, the lipstick effect, which we've just found out was coined by apparently Winston Churchill, which is fascinating, was essential because, again, it was that small luxury that people could treat themselves and buy. But when we look at 2008 and 2009, it was a completely different world. Social media, e-com had basically taken off in most of the Eastern countries, but in the West, it was still early adopters using it. And the other big shift that's happening, of course, that we're all seeing globally right now is retail stores are actually closed. So while in 2008 and 2009, when you look at the historical data, they still had that ability to get footfall traffic in store. And that drastically shifted. And to be frank, with the different shelters in places, we don't know when those retail stores were open. So what are the shifts post-2008 that we can learn from that we're implementing now? I'd say definitely one is a strong pivot to social commerce and online engagement, really tapping in to your core consumer group and letting them know you're supportive and you're there from them. Claire called it out perfectly. It's not about aesthetic and how will you look. It's what products and services can we offer you in terms of education or just relief. Particularly as we're going through our days, I think I'm guilty of it. We're all in a bit of a time warp where we don't know what time it is. We don't know if it's afternoon or night. Should we be eating pizza for breakfast? Who knows? But what's fascinating to me from the beauty perspective in terms of product is the stability that these products are coming in a sense of routine. So people are getting up in the morning, they're washing their face, they're putting on their moisturizer. It's a way to start the day. And maybe to decompress at night, they're using a mask or taking a bubble bath. So beauty has transitioned purely from just an aesthetic to really helping us mentally kind of tick and track our days.
Yeah, and I think Andrea is absolutely right about that. It's a totally different situation this time, and I would be, really wary of saying to brands that they should think that the lipstick effect is going to sort of save them or relying on that as a strategy. As Andrea just said, this is such a much more complex situation than we've dealt with in the past. We're dealing with isolation, financial pressures, anxiety, loss of life, and I think there's a danger in suggesting that buying a lipstick, will fix it. It is very tone deaf. It's very out of step with what a lot of people are thinking. So I totally agree. I think the principle of the lipstick effect will hold, that people will still want to buy small luxuries, things that make them feel better. I just don't think it will be lipstick. I think that it will be, as Andrea said, it will be things around bathing and cleansing, the rituals that bookend our days and add structure. And if it's going to be a cosmetic item, with masks now being sort of de rigueur, the norm, it's probably going to be more eye products than anything if it's going to be a cosmetic products. However, I think the lipstick effect is going to cross category, and it's going to be about cleansing and bathing.
And in terms of some of the other products, what are some of the other changes that you expect to see as a result of this pandemic in terms of, new products and new attitudes to beauty?
Okay, so I think we've talked already about the fact that we're seeing huge upticks in products that are to do with hygiene. So we've been covering on WGSN Beauty the fact that there's this huge increase in antibacterial and antiviral ingredients that are being used in beauty products. So we'll see those kind of products. And I also think single-use products will probably uptick. I mean, we've been talking about those really being replaced because of sustainability concerns. But actually, hygiene will become more important. It will trump, personal safety and hygiene will trump sustainability. Sustainability will still be important, but it's your own personal security and your own physical well-being that's going to be important for you as a consumer. So I keep talking about this, but I think people will have a fear of their own hands. People will have a fear of their own hands as they emerge from this crisis, because we've got so used to sort of not touching our faces during this. And that means that we'll see an increase of products where you apply the product into a brush or into an applicator, and then that's used, and then you sterilize and clean that afterwards. So great cleaning products for brushes and tools for makeup and skincare will really uptrend. But we'll also see products come with spatulas or droplers or pumps that actually you press rather than actually having to put your fingers into a pot and apply them. And the key to sort of, the success of those brands will be ones where they can assure you from the outset that the packaging, the application method, the way it's delivered will be safe and hygienic. We're
definitely sort of in this era now of sort of self, not selfie. And dialing into Zoom meetings every day has really changed how we see each other. We're all really comfortable now with sort of seeing each other without makeup on, not perfect every day. I've worked with some of you guys for like 10 years now, and now we're seeing each other for the first time without makeup on, which is pretty scary on some days. But it's really been sort of a leveler, and there's a much less expectation now of people to dress up and prepare and putting a full face of makeup on for a Zoom call or when you don't have an audience just doesn't feel relevant anymore. So what we're seeing people focus on is that they want to look alert, they want to look awake. So skincare, concealers, anything brightening. The people want to look healthy, and I think there is going to be a real shift. I mean, colour cosmetics could take quite a big hit, but because it's the effort. Will people go back to putting that effort on? No, I think they're going to focus on wanting to look alert and awake and fresh. I think fresh is going to be a really sort of big buzzy word for the industry ongoing.
In terms of, it's interesting when we look at the white space opportunities that are coming out, just from the team you've just heard from Jenny and Claire about product innovation and single use. And I wanted to touch on the safety over sustainability aspects, just from merely a consumer point, because, as we know, beauty touches many industries, not just beauty. And I think this ties in really interesting what's happening with the idea of safety trumping sustainability for hotels and travel. As we do know, this is down ticking right now, but there will be a return to either local hospitality and kind of when it opens, we might not be flying places, but we will still want to get out and see the world. And what's fascinating from that, when you think about how beauty really drives other industries, is the notion that hotels are looking at right now, where they've all made a pivot the last 18 to 24 months to put in large beauty treatments, and shampoos have been in huge bottles now, conditioners, body lotions, all of those things that we need when we're traveling. Those small little travel packets were replaced for sustainability. And some of the clients we've been speaking to on that end are suggesting, do we go back to the small travel size? We'd wiped those off of our business plans to really make sure we were being sustainable. But again, it's that safety versus sustainability. But I think particularly for beauty, what this will really drive in terms of future opportunities will be to look at what are those shifts in packaging to really make us feel safe. So again, we're not completely trading that sustainability aspect for safety.
I I was wondering are there any other things that around sort of hand care and hands that might change? I'm thinking about like things like manicures and things like that.
Well, there's going to be a massive impact of this on the service industry, which Claire and I have been talking about a lot on beauty, actually, in the last few days. Claire's got a brilliant phrase, which I can't steal. So, Claire, you're going to have to say it because I can't possibly take the credit for it.
Yeah, it's designed for distancing. And I think this is something that's going to be, really, really important as we go forward. And Jenny talked a lot about salons and professional services, but I think this is going to be really key for retail as well. This is about the fact that consumers are going to still be quite fearful when they're out and about, and we're still going to have social distancing in place, and there's still going to be a limited people in stores possibly. We're going to be worried about testing products and things, and I think we've got to brands will need to look about how they tackle this, and sometimes it will mean creating physical space. So when you do go to the hairdressers, when you go to the nail salon, they might have to take a station out so you have physical distancing between people, which of course is going to affect business because they're not going to be able to get as many heads through in a day, which could affect cost. But it's really about just creating a reassuring atmosphere for people so they feel that they can go back to store, they can go back to their businesses, and they can feel comfortable. And it's visually showing that somewhere is safe and putting that distancing in. And it's even, as Jenny alluded to, around testers and things, so whether it's spatulas and whether they are disposed of. But design for distancing, I think, is going to be such a key focus for businesses, and in the short term and in the long term, because I think these are behaviours that we're gonna stick with.
I think that's right. Retailers are going to have to think about, and I'm sure Andrea knows about this far more than I do, so I'll hand over to her, but they'll have to think about entertaining their consumers. At the moment, we're in a world whereby you have to queue to get into a shop. And I think we've got to think about entertaining and educating and informing and inspiring. And beauty brands are very good at being able to do that. We could educate customers while they're queuing up outside the makeup store. We're going to have to start thinking about designing for the line, as it's called in America, or designing for the queue, as it is here in the UK, and thinking about entertaining our customers so that we don't lose them.
And there are some other interesting retailers that are already addressing the queue sort of situation. I mean, Glossier is one in New York. But Andrea, I think that one of the things that you've been thinking about a lot is really around other ways that the businesses can address that experiential gap that we're missing as we're not able to go into stores. What have you been thinking about around this?
Yeah, I mean, I know just based on the, the Insight team's research as well, and all the stories that are kind of happening around the globe, we're seeing a current short-term strategy pivot, obviously focusing on your live streaming, what's front and center, how do you have those messaging and have those conversations in a real authentic way to what Claire was saying earlier. It's about that freshness, but it's also about being supportive long term as we push 18 to 24 months out to really kind of hone in on what that phygital experience that Jenny brought up so strongly. What does that in-store line look like now if we're six feet apart, or how do we still design for distance? Athena Chen, who's our senior editor in Shanghai, has been tracking beauty and retail opening up post-COVID. And one of the ones that I thought was fascinating, kind of, again, putting that phygital entertainment into a retail shopping experience, was L'Oreal recently teamed up with a series of restaurants. And so kind of when everything came back open and went back online, and it was so critical for families to get and sit together and be together, what I thought was really fascinating from an engagement perspective is they used these chain of restaurants, which are hot pot restaurants, as a stress test for their new kind of foundations and powders, again, reformulating to what the beauty team talked about earlier, reformulating post-COVID. But it was a nice, soft blend of this is our new product, but this is how we're using it and celebrating togetherness. It was called Let's Play Hot, and it generated 25 million views in essentially the first week it was alive. So being creative, tapping in those cultural and local norms, and really making sure that it doesn't feel like a product push, but a little bit of product play.
Okay, let's move into the last section where we talk about the short and long-term pivots that businesses will need to make. Obviously, we've got the next 18 months or so, which are going to be quite difficult as we move through this recessionary period. And then we've got the longer-term innovations that businesses will need to undertake in order to ensure that they're meeting the needs of this sort of new customer landscape. So what are some of the short-term things that businesses are going to need to do? Jenny, do you want to kick off?
I know that on WGSN we talk a lot about some of these trends, and they've been really accelerated by the coronavirus outbreak. And some of them have really kind of risen to be hugely important in a way that we hadn't expected before. So we were tracking sleep. So the American Psychological Association found that 39% of millennials say that they feel more stressed in the last year. That was in 2019 before this. And 52% of them said that they couldn't sleep. And we've been tracking that and analysing it and showing how connecting them with fragrance, with touch, with senses, with colour, using adaptogens, which we called out in our 20 trends for the 2020s. Those are all things that we've been highlighting to de-stress. Now, that is vital for beauty brands to get in front of during this. They really need to support the consumer through this sleep. The other aspect that's really important is safety and hygiene. We've talked about this a lot. I mean, we talked about it from a formulation, and Claire talked about it from a trust and credibility and ingredients, tracing perspective, but also from a packaging perspective. The packaging I talked about, the touch-free packaging, we'll see lots of touch-free, lots of, you can apply a product without actually using your hands, but also from the secondary packaging. We've been seeing a move away from, very, cellophaned and double-boxed product. We might see that return because people are going to be very concerned about going into a store and buying something that other people have touched. So that safety, that security, that you get that kind of double layer of packaging will be important. Working out how to do that sustainably is going to be something brands really need to think about because, as I said, sustainability is not going to go away. It needs to be tracked and thought about. Claire, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think brands that in the short term, they just need to focus on the essentials. Essential products, a really curated pick of those essential beauty products that we need every day that, get us through our cleansing rituals, get us through our skincare, and really, really focusing on that rather than, as I say, transformative beauty or any sort of particularly look or aspiration. Beauty has found a new purpose in the last few months and last few weeks, and that's to support the health industry. And that, I think, has been a huge shift for the industry. And as I say, it's found a real value and it has found purpose. And ongoing in terms of strategy, that's where beauty brands should be focusing.
Andrea, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I think in the immediate, besides obviously switching your marketing campaign and strategy, is Claire highlighted it with really looking at your product. So in terms of your e-com, make sure that navigation is clean, decluttered. And I think long-term, Claire and Jenny both hit this on the head. It's often in times of recession, in times of global uncertainty, we look very much at tomorrow, or how do we cash conserve for the next 2 years? How do we survive? And that puts us in a creativity rut that hurts us long-term. So my number one thing for long-term would be invest in R&D at the moment. What products do you need to create post-COVID? Don't just initially go, we're not going to focus on long-term because that doesn't matter. You don't want to fall behind, especially in today's fast-paced society. So even things from our consultancy team, we've seen a lot of growth with them recently, really futurescaping, doing the now, near, next formula. So those are two key things. Make sure your e-com is decluttered, easy to find the product, and really invest in search engine optimization so they know where to get your product, followed by don't forget to plan for the future. WGSN Beauty has everything you need from hair forecast through 2023. It's all there right now. So while we're all trying to survive today, make sure we're not forgetting about what this looks long term.
I think that is the perfect note to end the episode on. So thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for listening to the WGSN podcast. If you've enjoyed what you heard, then please subscribe to us. You can find us on all major podcast platforms. And if you really like what you heard, then please leave us a rating and review. It really does help us get the word out there. If you're interested in what we've been talking about today, then please head over to WGSN.com to find out how you can get access to much more insight and analysis. And if you're already a WGSN subscriber, head over to the site where we've pulled together all of our research on the beauty sector in the current and post-COVID world with key points from this podcast in one handy report. Thanks to our guests for being here, and I'd like to thank our show producers, Jamie Barr and Roland Bodenham. And again, thank you for being here. Please stay well and healthy, and we'll see you next time. Bye.